Hi. Um, can I? Hi. So I'm Raquel Cosentino. I'm the director of ESN Portugal. Here with me to talk about inclusion and feminine empowerment on mobility. We have Carla Rangel, Nicoleta Golino, and Margarida Sena. Margarida and Carla are from ESN Portugal, and Nicoleta is from ESN Italy. Carla, how
Hi.
does mobility impact person or people with mobility with disability? Sorry.
So first,
How does mobility impact on people with disabilities?
so first, it's important to say that everyone can go on mobility. So there's not a stop. There's not something that's blocking you on going on mobility. Everyone can go on mobility with any disability. Okay. So it's important to have this global way. The problem of a person with disability is that not every university is ready to receive you. As in Portugal, a lot of universities are not ready to have a person with disability. This happens all around the globe, so it's not just here. Um, so in this way, when you're applying to the mobility, when you're a disabled person, you need to talk with the receiving institution to check if they have everything that you need. Imagine you are deaf, you don't listen, and you want to go on mobility. You can go, but you have to plan with your receiving university that they will have a translator for you there. And this needs to be made with a lot of time before. So when you're already thinking on applying, you need to already start this step by step talking with the receiving university. Degrees normally work with you and help you doing this process. So the important thing here is that you're able, you can do it. There's everything that you need. You need to be prepared. That's going to take time to prepare everything to go, and you need to check if the receiving university will have everything that you need for it.
Okay. Anyone else want to add anything? Any input?
Actually, Carla, so as you've been in ESN Lisboa for a while, how do you think we can best support students with disability as part of ESN?
I think we need to talk with universities and understand if they are receiving any type of student with disability, because it's not because they want, but normally they are not so seen because they are not a majority. They are the smallest percentage of people going on mobility, so we don't see them many times. And there's a work that the university has to make to help these students to adjust. And there it should be where we should enter. We should work together with universities receiving these students and adapting the city for their needs and helping them and show them that we can help them. Like we can adapt our activities to a person that is deaf. We can adapt our activities to someone that is blind. We can adapt our activities to someone that is in a wheelchair. We can adapt our activities to someone that has autism. We can do all of this. But unfortunately, because it's such a small percentage of people that are doing mobility with a disability, we don't know how to get to them. We don't know how to show them that ESN can adapt to their needs. Because it's not them that needs to adapt to us. That's the wrong thing. We need to adapt to them. And this is really important. And it's the first thing that the society needs to change, that they don't need to adapt. It's us that needs to adapt to them. And we ESN, at least ESN Lisbon, has the capability to do that. We have the human resources for that, we have the ideas, and we have the will for that. And it's really important that we start working together with universities to reach to these students, to take their doubts, and to supporting them in the phase of adapting to the new city, because it's harder for them than it is for another person to adapt to a new place. For them, it's 3 times harder, and they need more support than other people need. So we need to start working together for this to go further and to get more and more students with disabilities to do mobility. Because I think there's always this afraid that they are not able and they will reach a place that they will not have the help and the support they need to feel free and independent in a new place. Thank you for the question, Margarita. I really liked it.
Of course. I also wonder one other thing, because
Tell me.
um, do you feel a student with a disability might feel that they are being discriminated against, even if positively, that they're set apart to have special treatment, and maybe that's the opposite that they want, so they feel more integrated and equal?
I think this is a really a personal question for each person with disabilities. At least in my position, I don't like to be put aside or to be seen that I need help. But this is my personal case. I have disability and I have problems to talk about it. But yeah, I don't like to feel put it aside or feeling special because of it. But and I don't think no one likes to feel special. I think people just like that to people to notice that they need certain help in certain moments and steps that they're doing during their daily routine. Um, that's that's quite important. It's important for us to know that a blind person maybe needs help to cross the road, and it's good that we are helping them. But at the same time, it's a person. They are independent and they have their own way of doing their own thing. So don't feel offended if the person says, no, thank you, I don't want your help. They are not being rude. They are they have their own way of dealing with their own routine on their own place. I think for not crossing limits of each person, you should ask first if they need help and understanding which is their limit of help that they want. There are people that are okay to have help and they have more help than others, and there are other people that they want their space for them to adapt. So the thing that I would say is the best is give them their space, talk to them, but understand which type of help they want. Don't try to give them everything if it can make them uncomfortable. Try to go step by step and see if the person is adapting for you what you have to give to them. Okay, because like I already did a lot of sightseeing with blind people, and there are blind people that don't like to for you to give them the arm. Normally, you send your arm for the blind people to grab it and help. There are people that don't like it, and completely fine. It's their way of doing. So we just need to understand that they have a support there. If they want, they will ask you, but keep them informed of what you can give, and if they need it, they will reach to you. And I think this is the best way of expressing and working together with someone with a disability, because people don't like to be seen as different because they are not different. They are the same. Just sometimes life makes them different, or uh, the city is not ready because they are able to do everything alone, but unfortunately the cities are not prepared for them. And so just show them what you have to give, and if they need it, they will ask you when is their time and when they're ready for it.
Totally. I don't want to overwhelm the conversation, but I do have another point to add, because I think you raised something very interesting. Uh, Regardless of the disability of the person, the help that they need is very individual. It has to be catered to them. And when I was researching how to be more inclusive in the sense of how can I be of best help to to different types of disabilities, when we were researching about it on how to also implement it in the section, I was really looking at, for example, what types of techniques that you can use to help someone who is blind, either crossing or doing whatever task. The same thing was on how to better call the attention of someone who is deaf or hard of hearing. What are the things that are less invasive and more and best for them? So obviously, even if you research as much as you research, or as much as you try to prepare, that will never be you will never know as much as the person with a disability themselves. And it's always best to just, hey, how can I help you? Do you want my help? Yeah, and
Hmm.
I think that's something. It's a step that everyone can do very easily.
But yeah, like I think I already saw stuff like that people get offended for the other person to not accept their help, because
Hmm.
they didn't ask, they just went and grabbed them. And you cannot do this. You're invading a personal space of someone, even though maybe they need help. Ask before like touching or stuff like that, because a person with disability has more different barriers for self-defense, for their life that they have, and sometimes you're crossing a limit really fast, and it cannot go like this. So the first step is always, "Hi, I'm here. How can I help you? Do you need help?" And then you see what the person says. It's really important for me too that everyone should know at least a little bit of like sign language. People don't know. Like we should all know at least hi, how are you, help, ambulance, doctor. Like for in a simple conversation or in a moment that you see someone stressing and they cannot talk to you, you're able to understand some stuff to be able to help them. And it's like a simple thing that can change the entire life of someone. So it's quite important, you know. Or when you see an autism person, a person with autism, having a stress attack, an anxiety attack, knowing a little, like the problem of autism is that every person is really different from each other. It's really, really different. So there's not a perfect answer for this, a perfect answer, but there are like some general things that you can know how to calm down. You never go and touch them. Normally there are people that don't like touch in the beginning. So if we in school we teach people these small steps, we are teaching people first how to be more human, second how to maybe save a life in the future with these really simple techniques that they help you to be with people that see the world maybe in a different way that you, and they have the right to be here, and they have the right to be helped in the same way that all of us are. So I think these are really small steps that can make a huge difference.
Like regarding these, I was wondering, do you have like any suggestion for people that want to like organize something like an event like we do basically every day, like some small tips to make like life easier, let's say like this for everyone basically. Like something that is like really easy and like there is really adaptable to our environment, for example.
So like events that we can do it for all type of.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't need to do different events. You can do a tour. Imagine you do a tour and there it arrives a person in a wheelchair. We all know Lisbon a little bit, so we know it's a high hill. You change the tour for a simple thing, and the important thing is that you have human resources for helping them. That's why at least in Lisbon, when we give a tour, at least 3 or 4 ESNers are going. So we have a person, an extra person that can help that person with the way that the person is. I think it's funny for us to think in a different way because we can adapt our. We don't need to adapt the event. I think we just need to find adaptable first places. We do like a rooftop, sunset rooftop. Unfortunately, the place where we do it doesn't have an elevator. So it's not a place that if we have a person with a disability we could do. I think we need to start to be more open to find places with more conditions and more accessibility because we don't need just because if we are not already doing this, how can we make another person feel comfortable arriving to us? You know, how can you make it if we are not already doing it before? And this is an important thing. So at least in Lisbon, we should start thinking that maybe some events that we do don't have a ramp. Um, they don't have an easy accessibility. We should start thinking on this, and this is really important. Like an example, and it's a sad example, but unfortunately, it's the true. And right now, we don't have an option to change our office. The entrance of our options of our office is not accessible. No, we have an elevator inside of the building, but for you to enter in the building, you're not able to do it in a wheelchair. It's an example, and this is wrong from our part. Unfortunately, right now we cannot move. But in the future, if we move, we should have this in consideration, in a really big consideration, because every student has to have the access to the office. Like it should be there. It's their right. So it's for them that we are working. So if we are not having the access for them to reach us, how can we reach them? So this is actually one of mistakes from our part. But I think we should start thinking in events that help the community to see how life can be different. Like some years ago, we did a blind dinner where all the students were blind before entering the restaurant, and they needed to go to the restaurant, have a meal, all blind up, and leave the restaurant all blind up. And for them to understand that everything seems different when you don't see. And these small things, even though it's going to be fun, and of course we need to add the fun and all that, it's for you to show them that life can change and without life. Because people that see, we don't value that. We just value when you lose things. It's a human thing. Um, so when they lose that, they create other senses. They get more open, and you teach them a lesson that things can seem really different. For them, in another moment from their life, when they see a blind person, they have a different consideration, and maybe they will ask for help. They will ask if they need help, or they will already know some stuff that they can adapt without saying to them, that can already give them more facilitation for them to eat or stuff like this. And this is like small events that every FM session can make, then can give this impact to someone. So it's quite important that we first start to have venues that are adaptable. Second, that we start creating events to give a huge impact to our students. This is my point of view, of course.
Certainly, we cannot use this as an excuse, but I do think it's something to consider. Lisbon itself, it's not an accessible city.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we should have an accessible office. That should be definitely our next move, that we take into consideration. Of course, we know that there are many other restrictions, but Lisbon in itself, it's not an accessible city for people who have problems with mobility.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is very unfortunate, but I don't think that's something that's going to change anytime soon. Even with very efficient transportation, which doesn't exist, it wouldn't really fix the problem. So that's also something interesting. And I feel like I'm taking the job of Raquel. So Raquel, you can also shut me up.
I like
But
hearing you.
but how can, like, someone who has a disability, very specifically regarding their mobility, how can they best choose a city that will cater to them? Because, for example, Lisbon would be out of the question, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So would
Yeah.
Coimbra.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Basically,
same thing.
Portugal.
In Portugal, it's almost impossible for a person in a wheelchair to be completely independent.
Tumar.
Unfortunately.
I don't know if we have anyone from Tumar watching, but Tumar is very flat.
Okay, so we have smart.
But how is the public transportation?
It
Sorry
non-existent.
for interrupting. Because Coimbra is not flat. I'm sorry. Coimbra is not flat in no way whatsoever. But you have public transportation to from anywhere to everywhere. But the buses not always have that little ramp that allows people with
Mm-hmm.
wheelchair or with a
Yeah.
cane or someone that doesn't have physical mobility and impaired to go anywhere because you can't. So you rely on your own transportation, and that's not always easy or even feasible. So it's
And in
not just
Portugal, we have
the
problem. Yeah, go, sorry.
I was just saying, it's not just the landscape of the city, it's how public transportation works, how public buildings work. Can you enter the museum or can you not? Can you go near the river or can you not? And that's not just the landscape. You have stairs everywhere, especially old cities or cities that are built around the old part of it. Like in Coimbra, we have halls and museums and old churches and all that, the pavement it's not regular. There's stairs. There's even when there's not stairs. When I went to psychology, my college was here, and I had to walk from the public transportation. I either had to go down, and if it was raining, I would go rolling over to the. And I can walk properly most days, but I would be rolling over until the door because it was so slimy because they used a tile on the floor that made no sense, and when it was raining a lot it was slimy. And if I went to the other public transportation, I would have to go climbing some pavement that is not feasible to walk for most people. Nevertheless, people with disabilities like blind people or people in a wheelchair or people with a broken leg. That's not including cars stationed on or in sidewalks and everywhere, and it's not accessible. And it's not just because of the city. It's the city. It's the way people think mostly.
Yeah.
I
Because
think actually
sorry.
it's not just like a Portugal problem. Like now, while you were talking, I was thinking about the city center of the most famous city in Italy, for example, and it's basically like everywhere like this, or maybe most in the parties like this. And for example, I'm talking about the city where I lived, that is Urbino. It's a small city in the center of Italy. Like it's protected by UNESCO, and you can't change things because you can't, not because you don't want to, but because the UNESCO thing says that you can't. So even if you maybe want to do something to help people and to transform the city and get it like accessible for everyone, you can't, for example. And that's like a problem because even if I want to help, I don't know not only how, but I actually can't.
Mhm.
Margarida?
With that, yeah, with that, I remember that I totally understand UNESCO's side that you want to preserve the cultural inheritance, and I won't argue against that. However, I actually have seen some types of support in this case for people who have difficulties in mobility that blend with whatever you're trying to do. So, for example, there was this place, this monument that had stairs. Imagine a church, and there was a platform that was blended with the sidewalk, made of the sidewalk material, and then it would raise, and then the person could go on the wheelchair. And I actually wanted to bring something else that Raquel was saying, that sometimes cities are not even accessible for people who have average mobility. And this is to remind everyone, disability is not that far away from us, from everyone that is considered to be normal, quote unquote, because anything can make you be disabled or in other way temporarily disabled, let's say, um, because you might fall and just hurt your ankle, and that might have you in crutches for 2 weeks. Imagine the struggle of going in the downtown Lisbon and having to continue on your day-to-day activities. It's not like a futility that you want to experience something new, that you want to go another place. No, your basic necessities are automatically hindered. It's an impossibility. It becomes an impossibility. So this is not virtual signaling. We need to help the people who are uh, poor, special, whatever. No, this is a subject that caters to us all and caters to people who need the most in each given time. It can be you, it can be your family member, it can be your friend. So it is a topic of the moment. It is a topic that we need to address in our schools, in our cities, wherever we want to go, that it has to be accessible for anything. It has to be accessible for a medical emergency. And that can happen anywhere at any time.
I have a weird question.
Only one.
Let's go.
One at a time. My question is, we are focusing on physical disabilities. like wheelchairs, deaf people, blind people, whatever. It's physical. What about mental health? What about mental disorders? And when I say mental disorders, most people are going to say, like, think about weird spectrums of autism or schizophrenics or whatever. But people with severe anxiety or people with severe depression or people with severe eating disorders and all of that, how can they manage life on mobility? How easy it is, or it is not, to go on mobility? Especially when you think of mobility, you mostly think about going to cities with a high level of high numbers, right? So a lot of people, big cities, big places. That for people with anxiety might be claustrophobic and something like that, right?
Hmm.
So ideas.
Actually, maybe that's the worst uh, thing to go on mobility. I say, like, yeah, a physical disability, it's really hard to deal with. But when you're passing by anxiety and depression, in this example that you're giving, Raquel, it can be maybe one of the hardest going on mobility. But I give a lot of courage to that people that even though they are passing that time on their lives, they're deciding to go on mobility. I think that's incredible. Um, but we need to think that nothing is prepared for that. I think the university should be prepared and knowing that they will receive the students that probably maybe need support. But actually, you can do mobility with a support person or a support animal, and is financial by the European Union, so by the Erasmus Plus grant. So if you have um, a, a depression, medical, uh, everything proving all of that. And if it proves that you need someone or an animal that goes with your mobility, your grant will include them. I don't know if people know this, but this is true. If you have that, your grant will double. So it's going to support two persons. And you can go on mobility with that person that you need for support or with your animal. And this is really important because I think it's not said enough, it's not published enough, and you can have this as your support because there are people that need that type of support and they cannot stop their life and they don't should stop their life, and it's really important for them to have this support. At the same time, I think universities should be aware of this and have a program where these people can be included, like saying that they have a psychologist in the university that they can reach anytime, or group therapy, something that will help that this group of people to feel more comfortable and less anxious and less stressed with these big moves that is the mobility program, at least on my side.
Like when you were talking, sorry, about like university, I was thinking that maybe something that university can do is, I don't know, I was thinking about myself when I was like applying to all the courses and everything. Maybe they can like write somewhere the capacity of the room and the number of people that are going to
Yeah.
take part of that lesson. So maybe if I'm a person that is doesn't feel comfortable like with being a lot of people, maybe I can say this to my teachers or my university and they can provide like a YouTube streaming, like sorry, a streaming like somewhere, or I don't know, a solution for that. Or maybe like we I think main most like of the section we have like survival guides and like tips for people. Maybe we can like suggest to not take, like for example, I'm talking about Lisbon right now, the metro between like the 9 and 10 in the morning, or like for example in the afternoon between 5 and 6, and maybe like
Awesome idea.
yeah, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe like try to take not this bus because always like super busy and there are like a lot of people. And basically like for the events, I think that we can just like have, as Carla was saying before, just like maybe a person or like a little space where people, when they are feeling like too much,
Overwhelmed.
exactly, as everything like is too much, they can just like go there, rest a bit, like stay there in calm and like be calm for a bit, and then maybe like join again the event. So maybe this can be also like a solution for it, for example.
I totally agree with you, and I think so. Everything that we talked about with visible disabilities, it gets even more aggravated with invisible disabilities,
Yes.
because, as the name itself says, it's not something that other people can easily recognize. And the steps that both Carla and Nicoletta were mentioning are extremely important, as we are the ones who have to show that we are inclusive, that we are adaptable. It is going to be very hard, if not near impossible, that these people, regardless of the special accommodations that might need, reach out to us and say, I need this, I need that. We have to make the effort to understand that, uh, primarily, and adapt to it and create these strategies, which, if you really think about it, it helps everyone, not
Yes.
just a select few. So, I mean, there's really absolutely no barrier
Excellent.
for us to actually start applying them.
So can we all
Imagine.
agree? Sorry, you were saying
I just
something?
wanted to say something. Like anxiety, not clinical anxiety, but anxiety is the disease of the century. Like
Yes.
it's the biggest disease of the century right now, and a lot of us suffer from it. So it's really important that, yeah, it's important to think on the the I forgot the word, the hardest cases. But we need to remember that this is more and more common. And if, like Nicola said, and I think it's a great idea, if we start sharing these small tips about uh, play, full places, like more calm places and all of that, I think it could be like a big impact, like because it's a really big community that's still growing with people with anxiety nowadays. Just that you can go, Hassan.
Oh, sorry, for interrupting you. Um, I was saying, so can we all agree that people, individuals, are all responsible for themselves? Either they have a physical disability or a visible disability or an invisible visibility. They are responsible for what triggers them, for their own needs. But wherever they go, so everywhere, should be at least aware and create the most inclusive. And it's not, none of your suggestions are really that hard, but they are just basic things, right? So although people should be aware of what triggers them, the universities, the public spaces, all the countries should be also aware of how to include people, doing minimalistic and basic stuff to include them, right? Is that it?
Yeah, but it's quite fun that you said they are basic, but we are not doing it.
I know, and that's mind
That
blowing.
that's the thing. Like they are basic, so basic that we can do like a post
Yes,
on Instagram or it's a email for a university, and we are not doing it. And that's the thing. I hope this helps people seeing that a basic thing can have a huge impact in someone. So yeah.
it's the
Exactly.
same.
That's what I was thinking. Like, I think it's not like that they maybe, I want to be like, I want to think, I always like to think about good in people. And I want to think that maybe they didn't do now because they didn't think about it. Like maybe when someone is going to arrive and they're going to face some problems, they're going to think about and they're just going to think about tips and how to do everything for the better. But it's maybe like some, and I'm talking like also for myself for this, for example, like if when I started like organizing events and like being with Erasmus and everything, I never think it about it because it's sad and bad to say, but I didn't have like the problem, so I didn't think about. But then when the first time like happened, then I started like thinking, okay, how can they feel good about it? So I just hope that everything is going to be better if we talk about it and if people are going to start to think about it, basically.
Okay. Anyone has anything else to add to that, to this topic of the conversation?
I think I would have a finalizing thought about it. So basically, just following what Nicoletta said, it's basic, and it's we're not attacking anyone for not doing it or for not having thought about it. It's just a different way of seeing the same problem from another lens. And it's an effort that we all need to do. And we are literally, there's no barrier to actually start doing it. And it can have a huge impact, as Carla was saying. So why not? Why not start now?
Okay, awesome. So, since you're talking, Margarida, want to talk about a feminine empowerment?
I'm always talking, Raquel.
I know.
But yes, so who am I? I'm Margarida. I had a opportunity to go on mobility twice. The first time to Denmark and the second to Hong Kong. So I've had the opportunity to travel, solo travel around Europe and also around Asia, Southeast Asia. The both experiences were incredible, but they did teach me a lot about solo travel. So, as you know, I'm a Portuguese woman and I was quite young when I went for the first time on mobility. And I've always heard my father tell me to be careful because people out there, you don't know if they might hurt you or not. And I was quite scared. But I have to say that one of my greatest qualities, not to be not modest, is my determination. So if I believe I can do something, I will. And one day I was in Denmark and I had 1 week without classes. And I asked my friends, would you like to go on a road trip to Sweden and Norway? None of them accepted. And I was about not to go. But then I just bought one ticket to go on a little cruise until from the north of Denmark to Gothenburg. And I did. I did completely alone. It was a storm that day, and I arrived without first having told anyone that I was going, second, without even knowing where I was going. Don't do that. But sometimes taking a risk and taking the first step is what starts a great adventure.
Sure,
And
but
maybe,
at least tell someone where you're
yes,
going.
yes, exactly. I will
At
definitely
least,
get to that.
okay?
But you know what? You know what I didn't do? I didn't tell anyone because I thought everyone would discourage me to go because I was alone, because I was in a country that I didn't know, and I didn't want to talk with people that would make me less confident. So I went. And my mindset was it's easier to find friends while traveling abroad than to find friends that will go abroad with you. And I did. So first things first. What shouldn't I have done? First point already pointed out. Tell someone that you're going, but find people that will already build your confidence. That people that will help you prepare and people that will make you feel ready for the challenge. Not for don't reach out to those ones that know that will discourage you because that will not bring any value to your life. Of course, if people tell you, be careful or consider this, consider that, that's not the same thing as discouragement. It's important to differentiate the two. But it's also important to be with people that will empower you as you empower yourself. Second, make a plan. Don't just talk to a random guy in a bar that buys you a ticket to a little trip. That's what I did. So I did that. I went on that cruise. It was incredible. I arrived. There was a crazy storm. I had no accommodation, and my great knowledge on solo traveling, I thought I will spend the night at a train station. I found out that the train station closed at 1 a.m., so that wasn't really an option. I kind of scrambled to find a place to sleep, but I did, and that's when I understood that my tactic for that whole 10 days would have to change slightly. And then that's when I started to actually, what do I need to do to thrive in a solo traveling? A little bit kind of late, but well, bear with me. So this is when you're vulnerable in a unknown city alone. I was traveling in a very safe country in the beginning, from the start. So this is something that you have to have into account. While you're traveling, you have to first really research the place that you're going. Places that might be or regions that might or might be unsafe. It's very important that you know where you're walking to, because you you become vulnerable when you look lost, you look frightened, and you don't know where to go. So these things are very important to avoid. It's not about just looking confident. It's about not even about being confident, but about knowing what you're doing. Um, so that was also very important. Being prepared, having friends in the country or friends around, if possible. Now we have a network so big that you just go to Couchsurfing ESN, a group that you find that is reliable, and you find people, not for accommodation necessarily, but you find people in the country that might be willing to go for a beer, that will tell you the best places to go. And by being prepared, by having some contacts, it will also safeguard you for any emergency that you might have. And maybe I'll stop here and maybe I'll get your questions or I'll get your interactions.
I have a
Otherwise,
question.
I can do a lecture, a whole lecture on this.
I have a question, Margarita. I know you're this really confident person. Since the beginning, I already know you for a long time. But during this travel that you did, as I did Erasmus alone too. I went alone on Erasmus. There was a moment that you felt that like you were in a afraid moment and not a safe place. And if this happened to you, what did you do to get out of that?
It definitely happened. I think it happened more than once. Um, so as I told you, very often I go solo travel, and even if I have friends around, I like to go explore things on my own. Um, and for that, it's important to know your surroundings, be very attentive of what is going on. And more than once I felt like I was being followed. I don't know if that was true, if I don't know if I was being paranoid, if it was my own, you know, I was making it by myself, but I felt like I was not in a safe environment. Fortunately, it was at normal hours, and I was not walking at very very late at night where things were closed. And that's where it's important to already know the city a little bit in advance, even if you have never been there before. Had looked around on the map, so where you're going and what are the potential safe places that are around. Even if you're not aware and you just see that there is a hotel, that there is a supermarket, that is a pub, whatever it might be, just don't rush, but walk confidently towards that place. Sometimes it's even more comforting. I once, even in Portugal, not even on mobility, I was walking around in a park and I was approached by someone that made me extremely uncomfortable, and they would not leave. And I called my friend, and this person was aware of the situation and knew that if I if something went wrong, they knew what to do. So having these key people that you know that you can reach out at any time, that you know that will pick up, it's also important. So I would say both, the three things: know your surroundings, know where to go, enter in a place that you feel it might be safe, even just to safeguard yourself for a while, and also have a key contact, even if even if just to make you company and to feel that you are not alone in this moment of stress.
I really like your tip of searching before going. I do that a lot. I already made some solo trips too, so I normally do that. And I think it's a really good tip to at least have like a mental map of places that you know you're okay with and you feel more comfortable in going. So with this, I wanted to know if you have like a recommendation of places that you think are good for female travel to do it alone, and places that you wouldn't recommend for female travel to go alone.
Well, I haven't traveled around that much, and I would not make the bold accusation of don't go to this place. It's not female friendly, because I don't think I have enough knowledge for that. I would say the general type of places. Um, I mean, don't go very late at night to the point things are closed. Don't go anywhere if you're alone. Just that, especially in a place that you don't know, where you might find yourself in roads that are not well lit. where you cannot ask for help very quickly. I think that's fairly human survival. I would also say that again, don't walk in places that you don't know where to go or where you find yourself easily lost. But what I can say that it's very nice places um, to travel to is places where other solo travelers go, regardless male or female. But for example, in Southeast Asia, it's a very popular place for solo travel. And even if you might go there alone, you might find a lot of people staying in those hostels, staying in those places that might might be able to give you more concrete advice on those locations, and even might join you for a day trip and etc. And then you might find also some partners to travel to. Unfortunately, I don't have much more advice than, I guess, do your own research and look into the places before going. The biggest mistake that you can do is go completely unprepared, and if you go alone, you cannot really rely on anyone but yourself. So that would be it.
Can I add a tip
Yeah, go.
that it's helpful for me? And I like to walk by myself alone on places I don't know. So the opposite of Margarida just said. But that's an activity that brings me a lot of peace. So I like doing that. Also, I've been followed and approached by people that make me uncomfortable. But what makes me through that kind of event is I have a background on martial arts that makes me comfortable with people that are bigger than me, and I'm 150, so it's not that hard to be bigger than me, but really bigger than me and male and a lot of muscles and all that. That kind of skills, that kind of abilities makes you comfortable in positions you are not normally comfortable with, and that makes you traveling at 2 a.m. on even in my own street. And I have a guy that I know he's following me, but I also know that if he approaches too much, his face will be in the ground, which is fun. And that kind of skills, even if it's not because you love it, even if it's not because that kind of sport brings you peace or mental whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's a positive experience for you. Basic self-defense should be mandatory for all people, because if someone grabs you, it doesn't matter if you know where the next public place is and you know where to hide. It doesn't matter if you have a key person on the phone and she knows where you are, because if he grabs you by the arm, you have 5 seconds to get out of it. And if you know how to twist your arm to get out of that lock, you're safe, right? So that specific set of skills, even if the learning process doesn't bring you that much joy, it's a good skill to have everywhere in your own city, on another country, or in a place you don't know the language or the culture or anything else. If someone grabs you, you should know how to take your arm out of there. And when I say arm, I say whatever part of the body they grab.
Well, I think it's a brilliant intervention, and that's true. Like, I was too focused on how to plan that I didn't think of mentioning how do you get out of a situation that it's unpredictable, like that. And fortunately, I was never in a position where someone grabbed me and I couldn't get away. I've had position where people grab my arm, but not in a aggressive or violent way. So it was not, I didn't feel threatened to that point. But I was in a position where I did feel that I was being threatened, and it was at 3 a.m. in Brussels, when no taxi would pick me up. No taxi. I waited for more than an hour in Gare du Midi, and if you know that place, it's horrible. Um, so I was alone walking around in Brussels, and I might not have that background in martial arts, which I think is very valuable. but I had a trolley with me, and I was walking with the rage of a titan. And like, I swear, if someone looked at me twice, I would have thrown the trolley in their face. A
But
couple
that
of people,
works.
yeah. And
That
also,
works. Really fine. That
This is,
works.
this is the
Been
moment
there.
that Raquel will say that she's going to give us a workshop of self-defense.
Sure thing.
Please.
Whenever you want.
Yeah.
But this is really important, and I want to agree with all of you because when I went on Erasmus by myself, my father gave me a small knife that goes on the airport, by the way, to keep with me. It will never kill someone in their life, but it can give you the time for you to run. I'm not saying that I agree with this because I'm not an aggressive person, and I never use it. I never use it. But the thing is that sometimes we need to have something with us that gives us the sense of safety. I never walked with it, but I always had it on my desk in my house in Erasmus. So I would like to have the ability as Raquel has to know how to defend herself. I don't always have a trolley with me, but I do believe that if someone would approach me, I would punch them in the face because I at least anger I have to give. So maybe that would move my self defense, and I like to believe in that. So, but I think it's really important what you're saying. And I would like to hear Nicoletta because you came alone for Lisbon, right? And I would
Yeah.
like you to. So because Lisbon can sometimes be great, but can be scary too. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the thing is that like I've been in Portugal twice. First time I went in Coimbra in Erasmus for a year, and then I've been in Lisbon. And I think that I love all the things that you're saying because I was once approached and was a really bad approach. So I after that like I have a bit of anxiety of going around and being alone, like especially at night. And when you were saying like actually about knowing how to defend yourself, I was actually thinking that maybe that was going to help me in my situation. But at the same time, I can tell you that if something bad happened, it's not sure that in that moment you know, not know, but you realize how to behave. Because I can swear you that when it happened to me, like I think that in 1 second, I'm an overthinking. So I already like think a lot. Imagine in a situation like that, I think that in 2 seconds or 3 seconds, I like was like seeing all the scenarios possible in my life. That this was like running, screaming, ring at a bell, because it was like it was not super late. It was like midnight, so it was just like a normal time, and it was like a normal day. But everything in that street that I was closed. So my only option, and I was up with a friend, so I was not alone. And this was like something that shocked me because I was, like when you say, okay, I'm going with this person, so maybe I feel more like safe to it. At that moment I realized that also when you were saying like about having someone to talk, I also did that because I start talking with the phone because I realized that something was not good. And I like start talking with a person. I was like, yeah, I'm coming home, yeah, you can already come out of the house, you can see me, you can open me, because I thought this is going to how do you say, like distract the person that is following me and maybe like realize him there I have someone. But that was not the case because that person was not okay himself. So I could like say everything, but it was not okay. It was just like under stuff, and that's it. But at that moment, like I thought about everything that I could have done in that moment, and I just panicked and I didn't anything basically, because I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do this because he was armed. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, maybe I'm gonna have this problem. If I'm going to do that, I'm gonna have that other problem. And after this, maybe I realized that if someone, or maybe if I was gonna like to participate to a webinar, like of just someone to talk about it, so also be prepared in a physical way, so like defend yourself, but also be prepared in a mental way, like to not panic if something is gonna happen, to not like to know maybe what to do before, or also after, because I panicked. I basically was like freezing that moment, and then I panicked a lot, but like a lot. And so maybe this could be also like a tip to talk more about it, but before it happens, not also after when it happens. And regarding Lisbon, like I'm saying this because when I did my Erasmus in Coimbra, this didn't happen. So I was just basically not confident, but I think innocent in the way of life is beautiful, world is great, anything is gonna happen, because why it has to happen to me, because things always seems like that happens to other but not to you. But when this happened, I completely changed my view also like of live, because if I was at first like a super night person that was going to the party and then coming back alone, I didn't care about anything. Now I always think twice before going to a place, and I always like check, okay, how can I come back from that place if I'm not driving? So maybe there are Uber there. And Lisbon from this is really like a, and Portugal in general, it's a really good place because you can find an Uber for cheap uh anytime. Or maybe like coming back with another person that I know that lives next to me. And I actually can tell about this, that in Lisbon I never felt mm, fall weather like in a bad position. But I think it's also because I changed my lifestyle basically. So I like try to avoid to come back at night, like walking, or for example, if I was taking buses, I was like just staring next to the driver, just like small things, and then I was just like walking very fast. But I was also talking about this with a friend a few days ago because we were coming back home, and we were not in our city, so it was a city where we didn't know anything basically about it. And this friend of mine was telling me, you know that I actually start running again, not because I wanted to, but because like if something is gonna happen, then I'm gonna be a fast runner. And I was like, dude, you're right. Why I never think about it? Like I like go swimming, but I should start go running actually because I think it's better.
Yes, honestly, I think that you touched on a great point, which is talking about it, like we're doing right now. And women empowering women. We are here for each other, and these subjects cannot be taboo. We have to talk about them. So it's not weird that someone is feeling followed or gets catcalled, whatever. It's not to instill fear at all, but it's to actually tell, no, you have the power. You can actually do something about it, and not to freeze and not to panic. And not just if you're the person in the situation, but if you're a person watching. Because many times I've seen these things happen in public, and people freeze and people don't help. And I cannot believe that people don't help because they don't care. I also
You
believe
just
they.
remember me something that it's really crazy because there was actually a girl that's I've seen like all this situation, and when we called the police, they say at first they couldn't do anything because it was just like our words basically against the nothing. But then when these other girls called, that was actually after 1 hour, and I was so mad at this girl because I was like, dude, like you've seen this scene, you wait 1 hour, and then you decide, oh, maybe I should call the police. I was like, you should have called immediately, or maybe you should like have streaming from your window, or just like say something, or maybe after just say, girl, do you want a glass of water, are you okay, like something. But after 1 hour,
That sounds like the bare minimum. Do you want
I
a
was
glass of
like,
water?
I was like, why? And
Yeah.
also the police, I was like, ah, now you're believing me just because someone else tell you that was true. But that's really also something else. And that's also remind me that I've seen that in Italy, like there is like an Instagram page, there is contacting like a lot of pharmacy, bars, restaurants, hotels in Italy, all around Italy, and they're making like safe points. So if you're going like in a city, you can check it from their page which are the safe points, and you can go there if you're feeling like um follow weather, just like not in a safe position. And I'm gonna stop talking.
No, don't stop. Yeah. I
We like
actually.
hearing you too. One thing I was going to add, and then I forgot. That's fun. About
But
you.
while Raquel is remember what she's saying, I want to say that that thing is that Italy is doing, it's really good. Um, like because if we don't create a safe place where you can feel comfortable, because we don't need to be dependent of men to go out. We don't need to feel like we have always to be with someone to go out and do our lives. Like we could be independent if well, society wasn't so stupid as it is. Um, like it's good that Italy is doing that and creating safe places where you can go by yourself and feel comfortable and don't feel in this weird position that unfortunately we live a lot of times. Um, so it's really good.
Okay, I was going to say two different things. First thing is the not helping someone in need. It's actually a very psychological and basic human behavior. So when you are in need, you never scream for help. You never scream for someone is following me, someone is robbing me, someone is attacking me. You yell out fire, because to that thing people respond. To everything else people don't. And there's plenty of social experiments about this. I actually, a long time ago, when I was a young girl, I did some teaching about violence, and specifically violence in relationships. And one class decided to do a video about it, a social experiment. I showed so many videos of social experiments, and I decided to try one. And I don't know if you know Coimbra, but there's a big mall with a sidewalk in front of it. And people just cross the road from one place to another, right? So there's always movement, there's always cars, there's always people walking by, there's always people standing in the front door of the mall. And there was a group of guys pushing a girl. They were all the same age, they were all from the same class, and they throw her in the floor in front of the cars. They pushed her around in front of the cars, and like one person just honked the car, another yelled, and that was pretty much it. So right in front of them there was this guy pushing a girl that actually seemed younger than him, and he yelled at her and he assaulted her and he did all kinds of not okay behaviors, and no one did a thing. They did another social experiment of a girl full of bruises asking for help, and even a police officer walks by and does nothing. Not even question, not even asking, are you okay? What happened? Nothing. And that's basic human behavior. I know it's cruel, it's awful. Probably the only reason why people respond to fire is because fire can affect them. And that means, okay, I need to save myself. But if there's someone in trouble, no one is going to move their finger. It's actually just a few. The percentage of people that would be willing to help is actually very small. And besides that very negative and terrible point, just yell out fire, please. Um, People at least will come running. About the skills I talked about in self-defense, what matters is not just the fact that you can get out of your arm lock or whatever, because when you do the same routine so many times, you can do it in your sleep. If the it becomes a mechanical response. So I grab your arm, you train for that thing 1,000 times, and when I grab your arm, your body knows how to react even when your mind doesn't. And besides that, the fact that you know gives you the strength to remain calm, because because you know that in a dangerous situation there might be some tool in your toolbox that will work, and that will give you strength to remain calm and try to find a way out of the situation you're in that spot. Okay, I finished my rambling. Anyone want to add anything?
No, it was great. And with this, the world is terrible. Be prepared, and we'll back next year. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's very relevant, but it also teaches us that maybe it's human instinct not to help. And one of the things it might be, it's because you also don't want yourself to be in danger. I don't want to say that it excuses all the behavior, but it might explain some. So obviously know how to defend yourself so you can also defend those around you, and you can also help in those situations of crisis.
Yes, that helps.
And that's a wrap.
Yay! Anyone else want to add anything? No? So are we done here?
Yes.
Okay, so yes. Sorry. Yes, that was a yes. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something, or at least you enjoyed our conversation. I'm really grateful for my colleagues for being here. I love you all very much. You were very graceful throughout all these endeavors. So let's go eat, I would say. Right?
Thank you so much, Raquel, for inviting us and for holding this. Thank you.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.